Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are covering today collaborating with admin and other coaches. And of course, as you might imagine, that is all to do with working as a team to deliver coaching services and to run a coaching business. Before we get too deep into it, I just kind of want to make a shout out to all the solo coaches on the line in case, hopefully that no one's just kind of skipping this. This might actually have relevance to you if you are a solo coach for a number of reasons. One of them is you might have the desire to work with a virtual assistant. And though it's technically possible to, just share your login and hope that everything is cool and everyone's good about that and respecting privacy, CoachAccountable offers a lot of ways to sort of nicely segment out, as we will see, administrative roles. So you can kind of carve out things that are worth delegating to a virtual assistant while keeping a nice clean separation of concerns and privacy, respect for privacy. The other thing that could be relevant to you as a solo coach is future expansion. If it's going well, you might at some point want to actually branch out and have other coaches come on board under your methodology, under your branding and your style of things. And being able to sort of put them in and let them use the system to deliver your kind of coaching at that sort of level that you've established makes it a really relevant thing. And then there's a third one which is sort of a niche use case, but kind of comes up more often than you think. If you're in a scenario of working with a client and you're kind of training the trainer or coaching a coach, these are areas in which coaching kind of bleeds into management and helping people be better managers. If you're working with someone who themselves is a manager of a team, you can have their team be in as clients and manage their performance, and then have sort of oversight and the ability to collaborate with that manager figure that you're coaching them to be a better coach. Let's kind of first set the stage for this and to really distinguish CoachAccountable as a collaborative hub and what's available to you using all that it provides to make collaboration actually really kind of sing. One is it's an all-in-one repository of client records. In the normal course of doing what you do with clients, in the working and supporting that you do with CoachAccountable, you're apt to create and follow through on action plans, set in motion and track metrics, share insights. All of these activities of just using CoachAccountable in the normal way that helps to make your coaching better has a sort of accidental consequence of creating this really detailed record of the coaching relationship and all coaching information with your clients and their various files. And oftentimes that's without any extra work whatsoever. So having that sort of transparent record that gets generated without extra effort is really nice for when you're doing team coaching. Maybe, given individual is being worked with by several coaches who are specialists. It's very clear and easy to see who's said whom to what kind of assignments have been put out to whom and when and what sort of timing, and avoiding overwhelm. All those things are made possible by that transparent record and all-in-one repository. You also have the possibility for administrative oversight that is made very elegant. You can kind of check in and see, a head coach could kind of look in and see are even basic things like, are things getting done in terms of, are the appointments happening, are the sessions being taken and shared, and all the way up to actual quality control of like, okay, is this up to standards of our style and our own distinction and methodology? Is that being followed with fidelity? And the third level is kind of just enabling a high level finger on the pulse awareness of how the business is going. Are people showing up? What sort of hours are being logged? What sort of participation is happening? What sort of results are being gotten? Broad strokes, you can kind of see that from that nice record that automatically gets generated in the course of using CoachAccountable. The second way in which CoachAccountable has this kind of magic of being a collaborative hub is it's your center for managing a lot of business elements. If you use things like appointments and invoicing and engagements and offerings and agreements, each one of these things are various dimensions of what it is to run a coaching business and do it effectively and have everything nice and buttoned up and nothing falling through the cracks. So having each of those administrative functions of managing one thing from another is easy to nicely delegate cleanly along those lines of those functions. And again, we'll see how those things can be set up to empower your team to do exactly what they need to do, aware of what they need to be aware of. And finally, as a collaborative hub, it's really great because in many ways, CoachAccountable is your platform for content and program delivery. when you use things like courses and worksheet templates and session templates and having, you know, shared file library things, these kind of become your sort of codified standard best of materials that can be designed once by a sort of master coach figure and then reliably and repeatedly delivered to people by a broader team of coaches, allowing that one, you know, sort of core coaches, you know, master coaches expertise to be really efficiently duplicated across multiple coaches to, again, give that reliable, standardized, you know, up to quality, up to snuff delivery of your programs. So all of these things, they're really nice, you know, as a solo coach, because as a solo coach, yes, you can actually, you know, keep these things in mind, you know, keeping a finger on the pulse of your company and knowing what quality of control is. Well, if it's all coming from you, it's not too important to have it as a collaborative hub, even though, you know, your insights about how things are going will be made that much better by CoachAccountable sort of transparency. But it's really nice with other people involved. If you don't have a system like CoachAccountable, some sort of, again, collaborative hub that allows this transparent, really real-time window into how things are going, then you're in the place of either kind of taking their word for it or having to, you know, ask on a routine basis, hey, how's it going with their people, and getting what you get. You have to bother other people to get that kind of window into what's happening. Or you have to, you know, enforce and create some sort of almost draconian system, or maybe a slog of a system of, you know, filling out regular reporting. If they have to, you know, file their TPS reports, make sure their cover sheets are on it every week or whatever cadence, that becomes itself a lot of friction and overhead of work and time and energy that your coaches need to spend just to keep the team at large appraised of how things are going. Skipping that all by having a nice system that, again, sort of tracks things in the normal way of you know, cadence of doing the actual work with coaches, which is what all your team member coaches have gotten into this business for anyway, is a really nice way to leverage their time and honor their time and not burden them with administrative things, while still getting the best of that view into how things are going. So let's take a look now at what it is to set up that collaboration within CoachAccountable. It really all comes down to kind of an elegant thing. There's only two concepts that kind of rule everything when it comes to this partitioning off and enabling this sort of insight and transparency. One is pairing, and the other is permissions. Pairing is simply a matter of pairing coaches to clients. It's a matter of, you know, defining specifically, well, who is able to interact with who. This enables you to sort of do proper siloing. If you've got 100 clients and 5 coaches, and each of those 5 coaches is only concerned with their own respective 20 clients, that kind of siloing can be done simply by pairing the right people with the right coaches, and vice versa. You can also, you know, CoachAccountable allows you to define at what level. As you can see here in this graphic, you know, if it's not no access, if there's some access, you got 3 levels. View only, you know, that means you can look but you cannot touch. Coaching means you can actively coach someone and do things like create action items for them, or write their session notes and put them on the record of things, and really participate and interact with them. And then the top level is primary coach. Primary coaching is exactly like actively coaching, but it's just a matter of, well, for even if you've got several coaches that a client is working with, that client has to have someone who is their primary coach, the one who appears on the side is like, hey, here's my coach. And basically they're the one who, by default, if there's no other coach who necessarily gets is sort of slated to be notified of a certain doing that a client has done within the system, those sort of notifications about client happenings default to that primary coach. The next facet, like I said, as I alluded to earlier, of configuring this whole collaboration comes down to team member permissions. And that's a matter of just defining who can do what. For every one of your team members, what sort of things are they allowed to do, and also at what level. There's this notion of, you know, can you do things at the individual level or at the team level? If you're one of the regular coaches, but not one of the sort of super admin people who have, you know, oversight and ability to things, perhaps it's okay for you to do things at the individual level, like schedule your own appointments or send invoices to clients who you yourself are siloed and working with, again, per that pairing mechanism that we talked about. But then again, you might have administrative privilege where you're actually able to do things organization-wide. You might have someone who's the appointment manager and they're responsible for scheduling appointments between coaches and clients for everybody. And so it extends beyond their boundaries as an individual and allows them to do things organization-wide. Let's take a look now to sort of really kind of take these abstract concepts of pairing and permission and map them out a little bit to see the interplay how these can lay out. When it comes to people who are members of your team, we've got the basics, which is, starts with coach, which is the main role. There's also administrative figures, which can have some overlap with coaches. Coaches, of course, work with clients. The subject of that is, the subject of a number of other webinars and other lessons, but we're going to focus just on the configuration of roles and permissions and all that here. Administrators have the ability to manage all those sort of facets that I alluded to earlier. There's a big collection of various things that they can do, and they're all sort of segmented where you can basically turn on or off someone's ability to do each one of these things, and therefore make a nice clean separation of concerns of who's managing what. And what falls out from that is who can see what. If someone is tasked with invoicing, they can of course actually see records and reports on invoicing, whereas someone who's only the appointment manager, invoicing will be completely invisible to them. In the overlap, we've got a couple of ideas. One of them is the ability to design team resources, and that's the stuff of, say, a master coach being able to sort of be the source of the core curriculum, the materials and the codification of like the standard stuff that you guys do through your courses, your templates, your files. They have the ability to create those sorts of things, set them up, and then make them available to all other coaches to sort of run with those standards as laid down by that master coach. And then the other thing is client relation oversight. If you're not necessarily paired with a coach, you can still have sort of admin superpowers to, well, I'm allowed to see everything, which is a nice way to, again, sort of coach the coach, offer insight and perspective into given coaches, make comments on things that are only for the coach to see, and allow, again, that sort of quality control and looking into how everything is going. And also on this diagram, as I kind of alluded to earlier with that whole train the trainer thing, we kind of have clients fitting into this picture in their own little way. Clients, of course, are supported by coaches, and again, their experience is largely separate from yours as a team. But there's two ways in which they can overlap with your coaching staff. One, each coach is allowed to have their own freebie client, and that's powerful because you can enable basically every one of your coaches to kind of experience and be on the receiving end of clients and what it's like to get certain worksheets laid out and get a sense of timing and rhythm of is it overwhelming, is it too challenging, is it not enough, am I getting 2 notifications? Being able to practice and play with experiencing the other side of the table is really great for a coach to have a bit of empathy and make sure that they're delivering things in a way that feels smooth and feels right. The other way is, again, where you kind of actually invite your own clients to themselves be coaches within your system, and very carefully do that pairing so that they're paired up with having coaching privileges, or maybe only admin only or view only privileges onto other clients, which in their own native company is the people that are under them in that. That's sort of word salad, but basically, again, that's a manager being able to manage and having visibility into their own team of clients where they're doing group work or coaching work, individual work, and so on. There's one other thing that kind of fits under this, and it's sort of right above admin, the idea of the account owner, and the account owner is exactly one person who has all the rights and permissions in them, and they're the only ones who are allowed to manage their account with CoachAccountable. Things like putting in payment information, managing appointment, or what account type they want to be on, subscription plan, and canceling the account when the time is right. And that's the whole map of where everyone fits in. Let's take a look now at actually going into the software itself and how some of these setups are made and how they kind of, again, just kind of are a matter of checking a few boxes or kind of some of these relationships of pairing that I showed earlier. Any questions so far about any of this that I've covered? Okay, and I'd say we're good. Let's go to Andy Admin. It's someone that I just set up, and we'll go to the, by clicking, again, from the team manager page, we go find them in the active team members and click on the gear icon to summon the manager. Going to permissions is where we find all of these things where we can explicitly define, just with a quick series of checkboxes, what they're allowed to do. First up here is the ability to, again, make that transition between coach land and admin land, or kind of the hybrid where it's like a coach but has admin superpowers as well. You can say that they're administrative only, which means these apply, but if you say that they're one of the team coaches, then certain other things apply at the scope of individual. Now, some of these, as you can imagine, are tied together. So if I can schedule appointments for all team coaches, certainly I can schedule my own appointments, and vice versa. If I can't do this, this one magically unchecks itself. So there's a certain tying together of individual level permissions with organization-wide permissions. But when it comes to administrative permissions, let's kind of play around with what it's like to, basically morph what someone's system experience is based on what they're allowed to do. By default, someone is going to be whatever you choose for, admin only or a team coach. When you go to add someone, you have that choice, but you can always switch it later. Role is coach or team only or admin only. And they're loaded with these permissions by default. Basically, the only admin thing is you can access the files and templates library, and you can access courses. Now, this is on by default because if someone is one of the team coaches, they automatically can do that. There's no way to or to hide shared resources from actual team coaches, because basically by sharing them, you're saying, hey, you're one of the coaches. You should have these in order to do your thing. Let's go look at what it's like to coach with Andy right now. If we go here, logged in as Andy, here's what he's got: coaches, courses, and library. I think we could have fun, I suppose, and turn all these things off, which we're basically saying you're admin only, but you can't do anything admin. So this is going to be super boring for you. We reload the pages, Andy admin. Basically, we're bounced right to the My Account page. This is all you can do. Welcome to your home, which is the My Account page. Feel free to update your name, and that's all that's doing here. But that's not terribly interesting, so let's let him do some stuff. So if we schedule appointments for team clients, and then magically, okay, that's the one thing that he has available: appointments and appointment scheduling. And then, as you can see, first you can schedule on behalf of a given coach, and then choose one of their clients and manage that sort of thing. If you were to let business management things happen, so you can see here we've got create and manage invoice for the team. So by checking this, the whole invoice tabs menu item will magically appear. Set up and managing offerings, manage client engagements. As we see here, this is pretty sparse. But then now there's a few more things. Like, okay, now I can configure offerings. And basically, as you can see, we're just kind of separating out concerns and letting people do or not do these things. One of the things that I alluded to earlier with the overlap between admins and coaches is the master coach privilege. Basically, things of, okay, are you the one who is empowered to actually create the resources that will then in turn be shared by other individuals? So if we share courses with the rest of the team, for example, if we save that, we can go back here and we've got courses and we can create a course. But importantly here, this master coach has this now checkbox called share this with other coaches in the organization. You can basically now make that available to everyone else. The same applies back in the library, where you can again design worksheet templates and session templates. And again, you've got this checkbox of you can now share this because you are now entrusted with this right to sort of put in everyone else's space content that you design. So it better be good. Let's see. Most of this else is pretty standard and intuitive. Are there any questions about any of these things here? So I could go through them one by one, but I fear that would be dreadfully boring. But if there's any things that aren't necessarily clear, I'd love to dive into anything that is not. I might be amazing at making software where everything is clear. I'll take it. So client management, this is the stuff of being able to manage team clients. Deleting team clients is its own special permission, because adding and editing them is one thing, but actually deleting out the record wholesale is quite another. You might want to be more conservative about letting people do that so that no one accidentally deletes out any particular information. And manage coach client permission pairings is, again, brings up the whole pairing interface for a given coach. So if Andy admin is now allowed to manage the pairing, they can go to the home, and with clients, they can summon the pairing for a given individual and say which coaches they are allowed to interact with, and so on. Note about primary coach. Primary coach, everyone has to have a primary coach. If someone is primary coach already, then you can't just pull them off to someone, because somebody has to be their primary coach. So you have to go and change it for an individual who is their primary coach, and you can quickly choose who else should be the primary coach and what access should the former primary coach have. Basically, these controls, hopefully the language is all pretty intuitive and good to go. We have this last group, which is superpowers. See and manage worksheets assigned by the clients. That allows any coach to look in and even if it was assigned by someone else, they can see it and then unassign or edit those things. view all client happenings, even if not specifically paired. This is basically like giving them view all access to everyone, only, again, you don't have to explicitly do it. This is just sort of a carte blanche, whether set explicitly or not, they can do that. Do coaching stuff with all clients, even if not specifically paired, is kind of an interesting one, because that's a matter of, even if I'm not designated as one of your 3 coaches, for example, I can do things like assign worksheets and action items. What's interesting about that one is if you're not explicitly paired with a client, you won't appear as one of their coaches. When a client goes to send an email to their coach, for example, if they have multiple coaches, they can choose, well, which coach do you want to send to? If they're paired by this superpower, they won't appear in that listing. So they kind of, it's like being an administrative figure that's kind of, I hate to use the word lurking in the phrase lurking in the shadows, because it's not quite that creepy, but it is a sort of like just like a stagehand that's just kind of moving through, but not necessarily known to be moving through as they do their thing. And then again, moving up the chain of superpowers, manage team coaches, that is the ability to create and delete other team coach accounts. And then manage team administrative privileges, that's that whole ability to set admin privileges for other people. And of course, if you can set admin privileges for other people, you can set them for yourselves and give yourself all the power. The only thing you can't give yourself power to do is having account manager privileges, which is, again, its own standalone thing, and only the account manager has that. And that's the gist. That's pairing and permissions. Any questions about those 2 things? And how that sort of cascades into, very, highly changing and dictating exactly what appears and doesn't appear for your team members. All right. So there are a few other odds and ends that are worth mentioning about this, most of which I alluded to, but I'll just kind of bring it to a point here. Menus match the permissions. So if you're saying like, yeah, go find it in the library, if someone says, yeah, I don't have the library, I don't see that, that's because they just don't have permissions to see it, and that's it tells you that if they should, there's something you'll need to change in someone's administrative permissions or otherwise. Item ownership. Remember how I talked about how master coaches can sort of create an item and then share it with everyone else? Well, that means that item is then visible to everyone else, and they might want to make changes to it. But only the owner of a given item can make changes to it or delete it. And those items include courses and worksheet templates and files and so on. So there's an admin permission called I can reassign ownership of items that are shared. So if I can see an item that's been shared with me, but I don't own it, but I want to make edits to it, first I can take ownership of it, then make edits, and possibly give ownership back afterwards. There's one little sort of caveat gotcha that the application does a nice job of alerting you to. If you have an item that is not set to be shared with the team, and you say, I want to give ownership of this to someone else, it'll say, be careful with this, because if you give it to someone else, it's not shared, so you won't see it again until they give it back to you or share it back with the team, and then you can take it back. Next thing to know about Team Edition as distinct from basic accounts is that there's some visibility settings on client items that are a little different. When you go to create, for example, session notes, in the basic account, there are 2 settings for visibility. One is shared with client. Yep, I'm writing this and my client is meant to see it. Or private, for my eyes only, which means that these are my own internal notes. No one can see it but me. But there's a little bit of ambiguity that comes in with that whole scheme when there are other coaches involved. So there are 2 other settings that exist for visibility options when creating them. You can also say this is for team coaches only. So again, that's perfect for making team sort of internal notes that aren't for the client, but other coaches who are allowed to see that client will be able to see that particular session note. And then the 4th setting is just me and the client. This is sort of often appropriate, sometimes not, but if you basically want to take certain session notes and the client will be able to see it, but none of my colleagues, no one else on the team, on the coaching team, should do it. That's appropriate for a sense of confidentiality, for just having it be between you and the person you talk to and no one else can see it. It's inappropriate if you're kind of withholding information that the rest of the team actually should be in on, and therefore there's a certain judgment call in terms of which setting you use in each case. Each one has its own appropriate use cases. And then finally, again, what I alluded to earlier, the unique owner account privileges. When it comes to say, oh, our credit card failed and we need to, update our payment information on file. Only the account owner can do that. So sometimes people scramble and say, our account owner is off for the weekend. We need to get in. Just drop us a note. We'll make you guys sorted. But know that that's one of the limitations where, again, only the owner account can do certain things. We can help you get around it if absolutely necessary. So to summarize, basically, you've got an awful lot that CoachAccountable can do as a collaborative hub, and pairing and permissions control basically everything. With that pairing and permissions, you can silo your coaches so that each coach is coaching and is able to see exactly who they're able to see because they're who they need to see because that's who they're working with, and no one else. It's a nice way to, again, respect privacy. And splitting out various roles according to the admin permissions so that each person who's charged with whatever jobs is allowed to see just those things and nothing else. What one can do and see follows logically from those pairing and permissions. Again, it should make a certain intuitive sense that when you uncheck or check something, that will show or hide something respectively. And we've done really rigorous work to make sure that that all lines up very well. And then finally, with these controls, you can basically empower everyone to do and see exactly what they should and nothing that they shouldn't. There you have it. Any questions? Peter, if you want to weigh in at all about your experience of having used CoachAccountable in that capacity of letting your own client be a coach in your account.
Okay, so John, thanks for your help with this and your encouragement, because we told you what we were planning to do and you encouraged us to have a go, and we've actually now put CoachAccountable into 3 of our client situations. So the brief background: we work as coaches primarily to sales team leaders, business to business sales team leaders, and of course a key function of that role is coaching the members of their sales team, and we found it quite transformative to equip the sales team leaders themselves with a coaching role in CoachAccountable with their team members set up as their clients. And we've then put in place all sorts of stuff, notably metrics, and we're still very early days, but we're now getting some daily, some weekly metrics from the team members of the people we're coaching directly, and we are seeing session notes that sales team leaders are writing up with the coaching that they're doing within their sales teams. Now, as I say, it's very, very early days, and there's lots that we haven't yet done, lots of ideas that we've got about using worksheets, creating courses to equip our clients with the resources they need to do this better. But it seems hugely significant that our coaching is increasingly evidence-based, and then instead of simply relying on our clients telling us what a great job they're doing as coaches within their teams, we're seeing the evidence and being able to hold everybody accountable and facilitate that growing coaching culture. And the platform, your platform, CoachAccountable, is enabling that to happen. We're scratching the surface here with lots to go at, but thus far absolutely robust. Some issues equipping people to be aware of this toggle between accounts and being in the right place, and some people are rising to the challenge more easily than others, but thus far we are really encouraged, and it's taken it's again fundamentally changed how we work with clients. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. Can you actually speak a little bit to what's it like for, I guess everyone with you being there to oversee and sort of comment on session notes that your client managers are making of their team members? Is there a sort of understanding of like that, this call may be monitored for quality and assurance, that sort of thing? How's everyone taking to that?
At face value, that it isn't seen as a spooky, creepy, lurking thing. It is seen, I think it's actually seen as us holding their managers to account to be effective coaches. I mean, so we work with sales teams. The job of the sales team leader is to enable the sales team members to be successful. They are owed effective support by their sales team leaders, and our opportunity is to monitor their growing the leader's growing effectiveness in that role. So the way, so Jean and I work together. I play the role of kind of leading the program. Jean gets the daily happenings reports, prompts me about specific things that are going on. We both drop comments into what's going on, so that there's a bit of evidence that we are looking. If anything, I'm just so conscious that at the moment for us it's very, very early days, dipping toes in it, and there is so much more we can do, and it's not. It doesn't appear to be doubling up too much on reporting within our clients. So they've all got CRM systems where they can get lots and lots of data, but we're pulling up a lot of other, especially qualitative data points in terms of reporting. So not just what they're achieving, but with your observation, John, with comments alongside the metrics, the story behind those numbers, which and it's giving us some insights that have focused our coaching to bring more value. It's all so having dipped our toes in the water thus far, it's working. Thank you.
That's great. No, what I really like about that is that you can actually position yourself as a boon, as a gift to the actual sales team itself by being in support of making their manager better at supporting them. There's a sort of like added value of, to the workplace happiness and productivity that your mere presence is giving.
I just want to add to that. I actually think this putting people in the role of coach really solidifies the coaching that we give our clients. It cements it, right? And there's actually a business model there as well, which we can talk about later. But
it's like that old saw of like, you can't give coaching without really getting it in your bones yourself. Any other comments on that, Peter? Thank you for that. That's a wonderful bit of in the field experience. I'm sort of doing word salad gymnastics, talking about coaching the coach who's your client, who's managing a coach of clients. And you just put it like, oh, the sales team and their manager, we're working with them. Oh, thank you for the concrete. Really puts it into clear focus. Thank you.
One other question, John, just occurred to me. Is there an analogous way to manage like an admin for coaches?
Not quite. So that's something that I didn't get too much into, but let's do that. Remember how I mentioned freebie clients, and everyone can have a freebie client. And that's a great way to sort of expose to coaches the same full suite of functionality that clients enjoy. The ability to, have notes taken about them and a record of, maybe a coach coaching them to be better. Having action items, things to do with due dates and reminders and a sense of completion and getting things done. I highly recommend, and I've seen a lot of organizations do it, where every coach will get their own freebie client, and then that collection of freebie clients will be put into themselves a coaches group, a group of coaches basically, where the overseeing coach, the head coach, can kind of be the coach to the clients that themselves are coaches. Oh God, it's word salad, it's terrible, I apologize. But let's see this in action just a little bit. Let's actually see how we can create freebie clients. If you go to manage someone who is a team coach, you see the freebie client. And check out this, it just says Elise doesn't have a freebie client, but she could. Great, because let a coach play around, see what it's like on the client side of things. As I said, full client functionality is great. They don't count their subscription plan. And again, one of the fourth ones I might add to this is like, this is kind of a cool way to have your own coaches group for that head coach figure to work with the coaches themselves. So we'll click sounds great, set up a freebie client. That's done. If we now go to the clients, you can see there's a freebie client that's right there. And she's her own primary coach, which is great to sort of do that back and forth dance of experimenting from both sides of the house. But then what we can do is create a group of all coaches. So when defining a new coaching group, I'm logged in as me, and I can just pick who's going to be the owner of it. Maybe I will be the owner of it, and call it the coaches group. Let's let them all interact. It's great. Group directory, why not? And let's add, we could add client coach members, but that's not the point. Because coaches, again, don't have the sort of interactivity that clients do. There's a very asymmetric relationship with them. And what I want basically is for my coaches to experience this with us having their own assignments or metrics or whatever we might want to do as a group. So I can add people like, to your point, Damon, I'm not paired with Elise, even though I have admin superpowers. Let me go get that set it up. Let's see, let's just do one more of these. We got 2 people. Set Jeannie up with that. And now I will pair myself as a coach of Jeannie and Elise. Those are my freebie clients, right? Back to my group. Add some client members. Elise, Jeannie. So here are my coaches. They're freebie coach clients, but we can do now coachy stuff where it's like I'll just send a message to all my group, all my clients or my coaches. And whatever I need to. And maybe I, create action items where again, we can do sort of things that are like the coach-client relationship of assignments and oversight in the context of my group of coaches.
One other thing to mention, you mentioned earlier, if someone says, hey, I can't see the library or whatever, it could be a permissions issue. The other issue when we're looking at it this way is sometimes they're logged in as their client account. So that's the other thing to double check. Are they logged in as a coach or are they logged in as a client? So make sure to sort of point them towards that direction as well.
Good one, thanks.
Hey, Morgan, along those lines, the trick that you taught me the other day, I thought was really, really powerful about the ability to pairing your coaching account with your client account and the ability to just toggle between them. I love that. That's just great. So it might be worth mentioning that.
If you happen to have a freebie client and a coach client and you want us to link them, just ask us. We can do that for you. And there you have it. That's basically using CoachAccountable for collaboration with other admins and other coaches. It's simply a matter of configuring those things and allows you to take massive advantage of the fact that you've got this nice repository of all coach happenings, both business and with coaching work itself. Thanks for watching.